Here are some tunes and a symphony of my favorite songs that you can hear all day long on the Cartoon Network. Okay, boys. A 1, a 2.
You're listening to That's Pretty Dark,
the podcast where we talk about all of the entertainment that scared us as children
and still haunts us as adults. So grab your flashlight and join us as we take a frightfully nostalgic look over our shoulders
and under our beds
and in our closets.
And together we'll realize, whoa, that's pretty dark.
Pretty dark.
Oh my God, I have to get it together.
Pinocchius.
I'm crying. I told Christian a second ago, y'all. I have recorded when I'm ill, when I'm sick, when I don't feel well. I've recorded when I'm tired.
Yeah.
But I don't think in any of our recording sessions have I ever been as punch drunk as I am right now.
Yeah.
I'm coming off of several really long work days.
You've been giggling.
So yeah, I've been laughing at all Christian's jokes.
And that's surprising because I'm not really that funny.
But he was describing, something that he had to cut from a previous episode because he tried to say multiple words at the same time.
Yeah, when I was editing Pinocchio Part 2, I had to cut me saying Pinocchius. Because I was trying to say donkeys and Pinocchio at the same time.
It's not as funny if you don't describe it. Because what's funny about it is that he said that
you can't even get through it. It's so funny. Oh,
because I'm imagining me talking over you.
Yeah. We're recording, and I'm I'm finishing a sentence, and you start on a new thought. So I'm listening to you while trying to finish my sentence about Pinocchio and donkeys. And in the background of the edit, I'm listening, and you're talking, and I just hear Pinocchius. And I'm like,
that's so funny to me.
I have to mute your track so I can hear what the hell did I just say? Pinocchius.
I will say this is the type of thing I would normally find funny, but I'm tired, so dial that up 10, and I find
you would give it
funnier.
a pity laugh. You'd be like, haha, funny. Let's get back to the content, you moron.
But not today.
But tonight you actually laugh.
Not today. Today I laugh.
Yeah, it's been a long week. It's only 8:00, and you're
already out of it. But do you know what we are going to say to our listeners today?
I absolutely know.
On That's Pretty Dark, where my name is Kaylin.
And my name is Christian every day. All the time. Not even just on...
I messed that up a lot. I messed that up a lot.
Not even just on That's Pretty Dark.
What we're going to tell you.
Ooh.
Something that you've been asking for. You've been waiting for.
We have officially launched, as of today.
We have officially launched
our
Patreon.
Patreon.
Hold the applause, listener. I appreciate it. Unnecessary. We just want to be here for you.
We have all the things that you haven't asked for ready at your disposal to just enjoy.
At your fingertips.
And pay $5 for. You heard it here first, folks. $5.
That's it. And you get $5. Everything. One tier.
Everything.
All the magic.
That's right. We're starting off with one tier because we don't know how to manage multiple tiers yet. So one
could
tier.
We try? Sure. Would it be as good?
We could put in the effort, but
Probably
why?
Not.
In this economy?
In this economy?
In this economy?
In this economy, if you consider giving us your hard-earned money, we just want to let you know, we do intend to regularly update the Patreon, bonus episodes, things that got cut for time, like tangents. A lot of you actually somehow don't mind when we go off on our tangents.
But we have even worse tangents than that. So.
Yeah, imagine. Just imagine. You can go all the way down the rabbit hole with us.
It's also bloopers, like when we say things like Pinocchius.
He's trying to break me, listener.
I'm trying to get you. I hope I can make you laugh.
Oh, you did earlier. Before we pressed record, I was sobbing under the desk trying to hide it. That's when I was like,
okay, let's record. Man, so fun. Yeah, so we're gonna upload a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I don't even remember what you just said. That's how bad my ADHD
all of that
is.
Stuff. Fun, pictures from our lives that you probably don't get to see. And by lives, I mean the life that we live, not a live internet thing. We haven't really done that yet. Not saying that we won't. That might be
life
something that we do eventually. Maybe hangouts on there. And
yeah, we'll also do a Discord community.
I was about to say, access to a Discord community. It probably is very small so far. So if you go in today, don't be shocked. But you will have access to communicate with us.
It's just us.
And other fans who've decided to, other Darklings.
Think of it like when you show up to the bar and you hope you see someone you know, but you just see me and Kaylin.
Exactly. It's at least somebody that looks cool and looks like you have things in common with them. Because that's what hopefully you all will enjoy, is communicating with other people that have things in common.
I don't know. I've been told I'm kind of standoffish.
Yeah. I mean, they probably wouldn't love to meet us there. But maybe other people that have things in common with us.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's our little announcement.
So if you're a loyal listener and you like what we do here and you want to help us out just a little bit so we can keep doing this, you can go to patreon.com/TPD podcast. That's TPD as in That's Pretty Dark. You already know what it is.
That's our plug.
Or one of our social pages. We'll have that link as well.
No obligation, but we would love to have you join our
Please help
Darkling.
us keep the batteries in our flashlights.
Exactly.
Please help us keep the lights on and just keep searching and searching and searching. And it's just so we can keep doing this because we love doing this so much.
We do. And yes, you're paying for the bonus content for yourself, but you're also enabling us to do more research, better research.
Mm-hmm.
Editing Christian is thanking you profusely.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah.
All that good stuff.
Helping him buy more and more whiskey.
That's what we need.
Because it's a hobby, but it's also an unpaid part-time job.
The podcast listener, not the whiskey.
Not the whiskey. Good save. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for clarifying. And we thought it was really, really fun to announce that at the top of this episode because this is a monumental moment for us.
Yeah, because we have been planning for this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is your first ever episode that you're listening to, I'm sorry. We don't always hawk our own stuff.
Yeah.
Promise.
We really don't.
Never done this before.
We never have.
This is the first time. So we promise to not get annoying about it.
We might.
We'll say that much.
We can't promise we won't get annoying about it,
true.
but we promise we won't get annoying about it.
I don't know what your threshold is for annoyance, but I do know that I have a cat yelling outside my door.
I actually heard that one.
Sweet
I usually don't.
Baby Buzz.
That was Buzz.
And do you know what that means? It's time.
What time is it?
To talk about Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Yeah. Buzz the
cowardly cat.
Yeah.
He is cowardly.
My God, we're talking about Courage the Cowardly Dog. This is our second season binge.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be fun.
I'm really excited.
Let's figure this out together. It's going to get weird, y'all. I can't wait.
Yeah, I have things
This is the weirdest show
about that
that's ever been made.
I will say also, as we kind of kick this off, I feel like this show affected my psyche way more than Are You Afraid of the Dark did. It's
super cerebral. It is trippy. It is speculative. It's hard to predict.
Surreal.
It is surreal. It is, I don't know. I think it probably did a lot to shape our generation. If you watched it, I think it shaped your worldview.
Absolutely.
In a very distinct way.
Completely, 100%.
And I'm hoping that we really uncover a lot of that as we go throughout this series.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not aware of all the reasons why this one stuck so deeply compared to Are You Afraid of the Dark? Obviously, I love that show.
Same, yeah.
But it was different for me. How did it compare for you? Your child self.
My God.
Do you have memories?
My child self? I mean, so this show did not scare me. I mean,
which is so funny because this scared me so much more than Are You Afraid of the Dark did.
For me, this wasn't scary. This was my, so Are You Afraid of the Dark was my horror fix, my ghostly kind of, ooky spooky, gonna keep me up late at night kind of fix. But this one was just the weird, strange, the high strangeness. Like, if we look at real life genre, Are You Afraid of the Dark is more of this haunting and Courage, I would say, is more of a high strangeness, specifically because it is just the inexplicable,
right?
More so than your generic ghost stories or evil clowns.
It's so much more unpredictable.
It's not your classic horror.
They use tropes from that, but it's more unpredictable. And we're going to get into all of that. We're going to get into everything that you're saying. It
uses so much more of the inexplicable pop culture that is real life and applies it to the show.
Yeah.
In very unique ways that are different from Are You Afraid of the Dark. But yeah, we're going to figure all of it out as we go.
Definitely.
Can't wait.
And I can say, sorry, Mom and Dad, I wasn't technically allowed to watch this show.
Really?
Yeah, they didn't seem to mind Are You Afraid of the Dark, but they drew the line at Courage. They were like,
that's so funny.
Shit's weird, which they didn't say, but they were like, shit's weird, you can't watch it.
So, I had other shows from Cartoon Network I couldn't watch, but it wasn't this one.
Many, honestly, of the Cartoon Network shows I wasn't allowed to watch So,
wow.
Most of my watching took place in the dead of night when my parents were asleep, which doesn't help anything.
No. That's our millennial internet culture. Being up late at night, later than you're supposed to, reading all kinds of weird articles online, watching videos. And if you applied courage to that same kind of vibe, man.
Yeah. I mean, courage was even before I was like browsing the internet late at night. It was just prior to my unsupervised internet usage. So, yeah, it got in there really deep. It has a lot of very poignant moments, which we'll talk about that too, and kind of why it made you feel things that you didn't expect.
So this is the epitome of like the lights off, that soft glow of the TV.
For me, yes.
Tucked under the covers.
I was under the covers.
Secretly watching it.
I got a box TV in my room the Christmas that I turned 7 or 8 because I had the chicken pox. My sister got them like Christmas Eve and I got them the day after Christmas. And so they put the TV in my room for the first ever time and it never left from that time forward. So I had access to the TV.
I got the old family box TV too when my dad got a new TV.
I only ruined one with magnets.
Wait, what?
You never did that where you like, well, I mean, probably not because, it's really
with
bad.
Magnets?
Putting a magnet on the TV.
No, I never did that.
It totally fries the pixels. Like they can no longer, it's like it takes the chunk out of the TV, basically, a usable chunk.
No, I've been all about my TV. If I heard that it would ruin my TV, I wouldn't have touched it.
I didn't know that at the time. I know that as an adult, but as a kid, I was like, this should stick. No.
Wow.
Anyway,
that's funny.
You guys don't care about that, but hopefully what you do care about, I'm going to give a disclaimer right up top that we're going to do our best to have fun with this. We're going to work through the tough stuff together.
I'm already having fun.
Yeah, and I think that we'll find on the whole that this show taught us some important lessons. And like I said, like most things we cover, it was surprisingly poignant at the end of the day. And I do want to share that if you are unfamiliar or you've forgotten, the primary message of this show, although it seems really ironic, is actually a lesson that we learn over and over through the children's entertainment that we're consuming, as dark as it may be. And that is, you're never really alone.
Oh, damn. Way to bring that home.
Thanks. So to refresh, I'm going to stop saying so, I swear.
A podcaster's play.
To refresh your memory, Courage the Cowardly Dog, who was not actually that cowardly, let's be honest, was created by John R. Dilworth. It is an animated series following the titular dog adopted by Muriel and Eustace of Nowhere, as in the middle of, on his bizarre and otherworldly plight to keep his clueless at best, neglectful at worst family out of harm's way.
Yeah.
Mostly within and around their iconic farmhouse, which is a magnet for the strange, malicious, and malevolent.
Damn.
How's that for a summary? No.
Great. You know what?
I had some time off from the summaries of Are You Afraid of the Dark, so I got to throw out a good one.
Yeah, while I've been researching Pinocchio, you've been just writing summaries.
You're right.
You wrote 10 different summaries and you picked your best one, huh? Perfect.
Do I get an A?
Yeah, you get an A.
Thanks.
A+++.
The series aired on Cartoon Network from its premiere on November 12th, 1999, until its end on November 22nd, 2002, with 4 seasons, each consisting of 13 two-part episodes. It was distributed to Cartoon Network by Warner Brothers Domestic Television and produced by Dilworth's very own studio called Stretch Films. The show has been called many things over the 24 years since inception. Like Christian was describing earlier.
Many things. From
unusual to downright surreal, blurring the lines between comedy, horror, and arguably psychological thriller.
Yeah.
Truly expanding the reach of a small but mighty genre of what Christian and I like to call children's horror.
Yeah, buddy.
And I do want to mention, aside from Are You Afraid of the Dark, much of what we've covered so far falls into the horror category almost circumstantially.
Yeah.
With darker bits of drama and suspense that tug an otherwise innocuous story into the shadows. But not in this case. The horror in Courage is promised up front. And it was also my and many others' introduction to many of the tropes of the horror genre, for better or worse, like we were saying before.
Yeah, that's true.
But before we dive straight into this episode, part 1 of our introduction to Courage the Cowardly Dog, much like we did with Are You Afraid of the Dark, we wanted to give some background on the show and how it came about.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to do that, we also need to take a look at the origins of the network itself, which I asked Christian to research for us.
Yours truly.
So I'm going to pass the baton.
Pass the baton. Track and field references.
Christian told me that earlier, and he's like, "That's track and field." And I'm like, "I'm not an idiot."
I didn't say it to like. I didn't mean it like you didn't know it.
Then he was ragging on me for being homeschooled. Jesus.
Tongue in cheek, because then you mentioned having a homeschooled field day.
No, you mentioned it, and I confirmed.
You're right. You're right.
And I confirmed.
So in this particular history of Cartoon Network, there are two fellas who are largely responsible for so many of the things that make up our childhood memories, but are also responsible for shaping American entertainment, media, and culture on the whole. And these two guys are Fred Siebert and Ted Turner. That's right. You probably know the name Turner, but you may not know why. I'm going to refer to Ted Turner as Turner, and I'm going to refer to Fred Siebert as Fred.
Okay. I mean, you could just call him Siebert.
Nope.
Right?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay.
The reason I'm doing that is because Ted Turner, his companies are all Turner. And Fred's companies are Fred.
Gotcha.
Their personal preference.
Gotcha.
So a little about Turner. He was born into money, privilege, and opportunity. He also spent much of his early life in the South, which has stuck with him throughout his entire life. He's done a lot with and for and about the South, which I do respect as an aspect of his identity, but the politics do get a little complicated.
As we know, living in the South ourselves.
Yeah, he has a reputation for publicly saying some rather controversial things. So much so that there's a whole section on his Wikipedia page dedicated to his controversial comments.
Whoops.
And apparently he's been given the nicknames Captain Outrageous and the Mouth of the South.
Oh my God.
Which, you know what that makes me think of?
South in your mouth?
South in your mouth. I can't tell you how many times I heard that. Just wanted to gag on whatever kind of South was in my mouth.
That's a football cheer.
It's a football cheer.
Because the university that we both went to had South in it. So.
We went to, and my freshman year was their first year as a college football team.
Yes.
And so I went to one game and never went again.
I was going to games then.
Yeah, and
that was a cheer that some students were yelling. They're not allowed to say it anymore, apparently.
Really? Good.
Good.
So Turner is something of a stereotype in that way, which makes him another example of a negative situation or a person that we don't really want to thank for, cultivating all the pretty darkness of the 80s and 90s, or at least making it possible. But we really have no choice. Turner's father was a billboard magnate, and once Turner was old enough, he began working for his dad's company as the general manager of a branch in Georgia.
I was about to say.
Nepotism at its finest. Well, his dad killed himself in 1963.
Yes.
So Turner suddenly found himself running the immensely successful Turner Advertising Company at just 24 years old.
Which I read that too, and that blew my mind.
I bought my house at 24, and I'm like, that's nothing compared to this.
Comparatively. But again, also, we are millennials. We weren't expected to be able to buy anything ever. So
that's also true.
Got to put it in perspective.
Got to, every time. But he, from there, used his father's company to make his initial fortune. So now let's jump ahead 15, 20 years.
Okay.
Turner has just spent his prime making a shit ton of money and going around buying businesses. I want that. Now it's mine. Thank you.
I see it. I like it. I want it. I got it.
So he's buying radio stations, television stations, the Atlanta Braves.
I was going to say that.
The Atlanta Hawks. He bought the call sign for the student-operated radio station at MIT, which was WTBS.
Oh, that'll come back.
Yeah, which stood for Technology Broadcasting System, because he wanted TBS to stand for Turner Broadcasting System. He paid them $50,000 in 1978 money. That's over $200,000 in today's money.
I'm surprised it wasn't more, honestly.
Really?
You could probably sell on Instagram with the right handle for that much.
Me and my friend Heath created sort of like a niche cocktail party brand, a company.
Yeah.
And it was only bought from us for like $2,000.
I mean, that's pretty good.
I would have loved to make over $200,000, but we didn't get that. We got $2,000.
Again, you got to put it in perspective.
But I did make a company and sold it, and I will sell out every time. Got to make that money.
You hear that, sponsors?
We will sell out to you. You could own us. All right. So Turner is buying companies and then immediately turning around and selling them because he can't sustain them. He's pushing the limits of his own audacity, and he creates the first 24-hour cable news channel, CNN.
CNN.
And then when he used WTBS to create what became TBS, he pioneered what's now known as cable TV superstation. And if I understand this correctly, that's because he was also using the capabilities of satellite to broadcast TBS, not just cable, effectively changing the cable television landscape forever.
Forever. It's totally different because of that.
Completely different. Also, fascism.
That too.
24-hour news network. Fascism.
I mean, the 24-hour news cycle is probably largely, you could draw parallels and draw lines back to that deal.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's the reason we all doom scroll today, nonstop.
Absolutely. But that isn't the only landscape he affected. All right. So I've been giving Turner a hard time so far.
He said a lot of things about Turner.
But, look, so one really great thing he did was he did create the Captain Planet series, the cartoon. Environmentalism was always a huge deal for him. So much so that when he opened his Ted's Montana Grill chain of restaurants in the early 2000s, it reintroduced the paper straw, which hadn't been manufactured since the 1970s at that point.
He's setting trends.
Setting trends. See, now we have paper straws everywhere.
Left and right,
and they
really.
just melt in your mouth, and it's just fucking disgusting.
They do.
But he was also a conservationist. At one point, he was the largest private landowner in the U.S., and he's used his land to save the bison from going extinct, which is really great. He's amassed the largest bison herd in the world. And I just have to commend him because how else would there be enough bison meat to serve at Ted's Montana Grill?
Oh.
The American dream.
I just hurt in so many different ways that I don't have words for it.
I just really loved that. He's saving the bisons. And then you find out it's just to serve their meat in his restaurant.
He's eating them.
In August 1986, TBS bought Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer
MGM
/ United Artists for $1.5 billion.
That is a price tag.
In today's money, $4 billion.
Jeez.
And he bought this from another rich white dude named Kirk Kerkorian. That's his American name. He's Armenian. His actual name is Kirker. Kerkorian.
So anytime anybody spoke to him, they thought it was like a signal.
What?
Getting somebody.
like a barred owl.
Yeah. But if you're, have a plan and you need to give somebody the signal to do their part of the plan, you go, and then they're like, okay, I heard your signal. I'm going to commence with the next part of the plan. Listeners, they understand
it does work. No, listen, it works. You go, Kerkorian. Kerkorian.
That's a lot of consonants.
All right. But sorry, Kirk. You did a great job for Armenia. You did a lot of good stuff.
And media. So thank you.
Yeah, he did. So, okay. All right. So we're being idiots. But
what else is new?
Turner bought MGM UA from Kirk. But this put Turner so deeply into debt that he sold it back to Kerkorian 75 days later.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes.
On October 18th. And like I said, this guy he just buys companies, can't sustain them, and sells them because he buys things because he just wants to buy them. Mm-hmm. He is a stereotype. He is Bruce Wayne buying the hotel.
Oh, right. I thought you were going to say he's Elon Musk buying Twitter.
Well, I was gonna say that because I was like, in today's money, because look, that's $4 billion in today's money, but MGM is worth so much more than that today.
Oh,
I don't know how much they're worth, but you would literally have to be Elon Musk to buy MGM today because it would be like billions of dollars.
They have a lot of, if I'm not mistaken, they have a lot of film archives.
Yes,
which I'm about to get into. They own a lot of that property. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. But you'd have to throw away that much money and get into a deal that you then can't get out of and buy Twitter for $40 billion.
So there are people that could.
There are people who could. But this is what Turner's doing back in the 80s. He buys it and his entire company, everyone goes, oh my God, Ted, what have you done? Mm-hmm. You have to sell this back. But the funny thing is, Kerkorian is a philanthropist, a true philanthropist, and he actually wanted to give a lot of the money to Armenia and serve, that entire country. Like he's on stamps now, he's on coins or whatever, because he did so much for Armenia. But when Ted goes, hey, I'm gonna need you to buy this back. Mm-hmm. Kirk says, okay, I'll give you $300 million. That's 1/5 of what Turner just paid for it.
Wow.
So he kept a large amount of those film and television libraries. And then he used everything that he kept from Kirk to then form Turner Entertainment Company. And then 2 years later, Turner Entertainment launched the cable channel Turner Network Television, which is TNT, where Turner could now air much of this film library he'd collected. And this is the same library where we get Turner Classic Movies from.
Yes.
Which I thought was so fun. Like, I thought this was so fun.
You're learning, it's the origin story of a lot of the things that we watch on TV, passively or actively as kids.
All the time. I could still see the super smoky noir looking people on those like Turner Classic Movies. Like, oh my God, like I can still feel what that felt like to go, I'm changing the channel. I'm not watching that.
I watched them. I liked them.
I wish I had. I'd be a better person.
As a kid, I watched them.
But at the same time all this was happening, Turner still owned the MGM cartoon library, which consisted of all the pre-1948 Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies and the Popeye cartoons from Fleischer Famous Studios. So he had a lot of stuff. He had a lot of content. And in 1991, Turner had 2 more major life changes. The year I was born.
Hey.
Let me just, fluff my shirt a
baby
little
Christian.
bit.
Hey.
The most important baby in this room.
Well,
the first thing is he married Jane Fonda, and 2, he purchased the Hanna-Barbera animation library for $320 million.
And changed the course of history.
Forever. So seeing as now Turner has amassed one hell of an animation library, he tasked the senior vice president of TNT at the time, Betty Cohen, with creating a network where these programs could live. And by February 1992, Turner Broadcasting announced its plans to launch Cartoon Network, which it did on October 1st, 1992.
Nice. The year I was born.
Well, the year that you were born, but 29 years to the day that we launched our podcast.
Cartoon Network launched on our anniversary, guys. Can you believe that?
We share an anniversary.
That's kind of sweet.
So I mentioned Betty Cohen, and I want to give credit where credit is due. She goes relatively unmentioned.
Like most women throughout history.
Exactly. And I want to take a moment and say Cartoon Network was essentially her brainchild. He said, hey, make something where I can just show all this stuff. And she then invented Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
But she really is given no credit.
Wow.
So we're doing it here today. She got her start in advertising in the late 70s and eventually found her way into the television industry by being the first manager of marketing for Cable Health Network in 82. After which she became the marketing director for Nickelodeon from 84 to 88.
Wow.
At which point she joined TBS and worked her way up into becoming TNT's senior vice president, which is when she was asked to develop Cartoon Network, where she served as president of that company until 2001.
What a reign.
Really remarkable.
And also the fact that she came from Nickelodeon and she kind of had a hand in everything.
Yep. She was there from the beginning of all these things.
Thank you, Betty.
Yeah, thanks, Betty. I mean, she's one of the people who really made it happen. She worked her way up through the ranks as a woman in this industry predominantly run by men and got to a point of power.
We love you, Betty, wherever you are, wherever you ended up.
Maybe we could get her on the show and talk to her for a Patreon.
2001.
And there's leftover disagreements with somebody else who was in power of TBS at that point.
Brief side note. It may be relevant. Listener may enjoy it. I don't know. But I love Boy Meets World, and the podcast Pod Meets World is amazing because it's the three of the leads talking about everything. And I have wondered my entire life what happened to April Kelly, because every episode of Boy Meets World has the credits created by Michael Jacobs and April Kelly. And they're uncovering now what happened to April Kelly. They were told different things than the reality when they were children, on the show.
Of course, yeah.
Michael Jacobs controlled that entire narrative, and it's wild.
Damn.
That's
tough.
Women in entertainment have been grossly underappreciated for decades and decades. And this was, Boy Meets World was the early to mid 90s.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
it's all around this time.
It pains me what women in that industry, in all industries, but that one especially, had to go through because they were responsible. They had a hand in creating something that's so important to me.
Yeah.
And so many people our age, and they get really none of the credit.
So this stuff is really fun. When Cartoon Network officially launched, I looked up a YouTube video version of it, and everything leading up to the exact moment that it launches, there's a big clock that's like spinning very quickly through each number on the clock is a different cartoon character's face.
Aww.
And the hands are just going like rapidly around. And there's this countdown meter of like, this many minutes or seconds until we talk cartoons.
Nice.
And when it reached 0, the first thing that happened was a series of cartoon explosions set to the finale of Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture.
Nice.
They're like, dun, 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 dun. It was very cool. It was like, I'm going to lay in a track. That was all followed by a sort of a show and tell guide to the network by the Tom and Jerry character Droopy Dog.
Oh, Droopy.
Hey, folks. Welcome to the world's first and only Cartoon Network, the home of the cartoon stars. To help you find your way around here, I'd like to personally present
Droopy's Guide to the Cartoon Network.
First things first, you need to be in tune with your new environment.
This is what you're going to see here on the network. I can't do a Droopy Dog voice.
But you got the point across.
I always do, in some way. And this all lasts about 3 minutes, followed immediately by the first ever Cartoon Network episode. The Bugs Bunny cartoon, Rhapsody Rabbit.
I was going to say, which was Bugs Bunny.
Yep.
Fitting, honestly, very fitting.
Mel Blanc.
Mel Blanc.
When Cartoon Network launched, its library already had 8,500 hours of cartoons.
Wow.
It wasn't the first cable channel to rely on cartoons to attract its target demographic, but it was the first 24-hour single genre channel with animation as its main theme. Because there was like Nickelodeon, Disney, I think the Family Channel was already doing some cartoons. But this is the only one, the first one that was 24 hours of cartoons.
24-hour, nothing but cartoons.
Nothing but cartoons.
Which is a new format, at the time.
And this was a risky move. But Turner believed in the approach because of his success with CNN. So he was like, well, I've done it before.
People want things
I'll do it again.
All the time. They want it.
They do. Well, either we wanted it or this made it accessible and therefore we felt like we needed it.
Sure.
I'm not saying it's great.
Nope.
But
it has its own consequences.
Still, only 233 cable systems carried Cartoon Network when it first launched. So Turner lumped it into cable packages with his other channels like TBS, TNT, and then once it started receiving higher and higher ratings, more cable systems picked it up. And by 1994, Cartoon Network was the 5th most popular cable channel in the US.
Wow.
So it worked its way up real fast.
In my mind, like from childhood, I associate all of those networks together. CNN, TNT, Cartoon Network. Like, I don't know if there were bumpers or different ads.
I'm sure there was some crossover.
For like advertising different networks.
Well, there were cartoons that were airing on Cartoon Network that were also airing on TBS and TNT at certain times of the day,
That makes sense.
I'm sure we did. I'm sure when you were like
flipping
scrolling
channels, I would see Bugs Bunny on TBS.
I would see one and I'd go like, I don't want to watch this. Let me see what's on TBS. I'd go to TBS.
Yeah.
And see what's there. So he was just like putting things where it fit.
Sure.
When you're that rich, you can just do whatever you want and take risks and nothing matters.
Except you can't buy MGM.
We're going to be there when people give to our Patreon. That's why we have the Patreon.
So you guys are going to make us the next Ted Turner.
We're going to go buy Warner Brothers and we're going to own everything that's been around since the 80s.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, since the 40s.
Warner Brothers would be more likely to buy us.
Please. Please buy us. So the first actual original series to run on Cartoon Network was The Moxie Show, a.k.a. The Moxie Pirate Show, a.k.a. The Moxie and Flea Show. Did you ever watch those? Those were very early Cartoon Network. We were like babies.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
So this only ran for like 2 years, from December 93 to Christmas Day 95. So I don't remember ever watching it, really.
I was not quite in control of the remote yet. My parents would probably turn things on for me.
Probably. I think I was still watching Barney in this era. And like Blue's Clues and stuff on Nickelodeon.
I was watching, Little Bear.
Little Bear. Oh my God, Little Bear. I wish that was darker. We could cover it.
I know.
But since this series, The Moxie Show, was more of an anthology style, there wasn't a whole lot of structure to it. The show that is considered Cartoon Network's first originally produced series is Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And I can't prove it, but I feel like the show may have been partially inspired by the success of Art Bell's Coast to Coast AM.
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, it's very similar.
I'm pretty sure.
So Space Ghost Coast to Coast seems like a really odd choice to start a cartoon channel for children with a show like that, because it's essentially an ironic deconstruction of a late night talk show. And like my parents watched Jay Leno, so I kind of got the concept, and I watched Space Ghost Coast to Coast all the time.
I didn't. That's the thing.
I don't know that
I've seen it, but I didn't watch it constantly.
I don't know that I understood it, but I watched it because I felt like, oh, this is a talk show for children. It was really
I'm
weird.
supposed to watch this because my parents watch talk shows.
Very sophisticated with my pretzels and my chocolate milk. So, as we've discussed before on this podcast, Space Ghost was an old Hanna-Barbera cartoon from the 1960s. So the animators at Cartoon Network mostly used recycled animation cells from the Hanna-Barbera archives. So I thought that was really interesting that they just sort of like
with it being a talk show, they didn't need to animate him in a ton of different places.
Fully animated.
They could get away with the set,
right.
The reactions, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So minimal effort, maximum return.
Just getting things off the ground, it seems like a smart move.
Bet it was Betty.
Maybe it was Betty. Hey, could be. The most extreme difference that I found between the origins of Nickelodeon and the origins of Cartoon Network, which was my main goal for this research, was to figure out how they were different and how they were similar. Those differences is that Nick wanted to appeal to children while Cartoon Network wanted to appeal to adults. They wanted to bring in the grown-ups who grew up watching the older cartoons like Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry, Popeye, Space Ghost. And this is why we remember such strange, inappropriate cartoons from those early years, like Cow and Chicken and Johnny Bravo. And Space Ghost Coast to Coast was instrumental in establishing that appeal to older audiences.
I was just going to say that was the link between the past and the present.
Yeah. It was really strange. And I remember one time, one of my strongest memories from when I was a kid, sitting up one night watching Tom and Jerry, and my dad came in. He sat on the foot of my bed and was watching it with me. And he was like, I used to watch Tom and Jerry when I was your age. But I was like, how did he watch this when he was a kid?
If I'm watching it now.
And I couldn't put it together.
Yeah.
This spans generations, guys. It's really cool
Definitely.
stuff. So they were putting these cartoons on this network because they were hoping people like my dad would sit down and watch it.
So for a recap very quickly, is it fair to say Nickelodeon's focus was original content for actual children?
Yeah.
Cartoon Network's focus was recycled content and repurposed content for children at heart.
Children at heart, yes. So that might be actual children, or it might be teenagers, or young adults, or adults. Anybody who was interested, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so they were trying to reach a broad scope, which is why there was such a broad spectrum of content.
And which answers many of our questions, just right off the bat, answers many of our questions about why was this so dark?
Why was this allowed to be so dark?
It wasn't ever really meant for us.
As long as it was suitable to show on television, Turner was going to put it on Cartoon Network. And that was it.
And I'm not mad about it because it shaped
I'm not mad
a
either.
lot of the way that I think, a lot of the way that I write, a lot of the way that I create.
So there's a lot of back and forth between Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, and I'm going to keep talking about that stuff. But this is why, like, if you were to sit down and compare Nick at Night versus Adult Swim, Nick at Night is family friendly. Adult Swim is not family friendly.
Nope, not at all.
That's for adults.
Adults. And
it was on Cartoon Network, and you literally went from your children's cartoons, your family friendly cartoons, to inappropriate adult animation, literally from 1 hour to the next. And I watched a lot of it.
I didn't. See, that's the other thing. I wasn't allowed.
I wasn't allowed.
When Adult Swim came on, when that was the block of programming, I was supposed to turn it off.
I was supposed to as well, but I would just turn it down.
And most of the time, it didn't interest me the same way. So I was like, okay.
I mostly just watched Aqua Teen, Hunger Force, and home videos or whatever, and home movies or something.
Home movies.
Home movies, yeah. I think that was a later one. I used to be able to do the the meatball voice from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Hey, man. Hey. All right. So enter Fred Siebert.
Mm-hmm.
Fred became the president of Hanna-Barbera in 1992 and led it into a new golden age the studio hadn't known for many years. Hanna-Barbera's last successful show was The Smurfs, which ran from 81 to 89. And as great as The Smurfs was, as much as I loved it, that means Hanna-Barbera hadn't produced a new show in over a decade.
Wow. Hanna-Barbera is my dad's favorite. Like, those characters, Yogi Bear.
The Jetsons, the Flintstones.
All Hanna-Barbera. All cartoons that my dad and I kind of bonded over. Because he loved them from, if not his childhood, his teenage, young adult life.
Was Scooby-Doo Hanna-Barbera?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah, so all those classics, man.
1969.
I love Looney Tunes. I love the Merry Melodies and all that stuff. But if I had to pick from all this, it might be Hanna-Barbera.
Wow.
To live. Like if I had to pick one.
That's intense. I don't know. I would have to think about it. I don't know.
It's tough.
It's really tough.
So Fred was really, really great news for Hanna-Barbera because just prior to this, he was absolutely crushing the children's entertainment game over at Nickelodeon. I'm going to jump around in Fred's timeline here. Fred Siebert is one of those rare people who single-handedly changed, shaped, and improved American pop culture throughout the 80s and 90s. He worked with a bunch of different people, but he was the through line for everything. And if you don't know his name, there are a few important things you should know about Fred Siebert. The first thing is he was a co-founder of MTV. He was in charge of the team that really developed the brand and identity of MTV, which when it began was Sight on Sound. And kind of the reason he got into this music television in the first place is because he had previously been a music producer.
Wow.
And he had also worked in radio, specifically media promotion for radio.
He lived a lot of lives.
Actually, it's kind of a joke is he's had like 5 different lives, 5 different careers, and they're all in different industries. It's pretty cool. He's been nominated. He's won awards. He's a highly decorated contributor to our childhood.
Keep his name in mind, listener, because I will bring him up again.
So one of the things that nobody really talks about anymore is how MTV changed the television industry. Thanks to Fred's approach to MTV, networks or systems didn't just think of themselves as combinations of channels and programs that supported a specific genre of entertainment. They started to think of themselves as brands. So he did this with MTV, Nickelodeon, Comedy Central, and eventually he brought all this knowledge to Cartoon Network through Hanna-Barbera. So the second thing about Fred Siebert, he saved Nickelodeon. At this time, in the mid-'80s, Nickelodeon was lumped into MTV Networks with MTV and VH1. MTV Networks at this time had a new president who was unhappy with how things were going, so he started firing people. Also at this time, Fred had created the world's first media branding company with his longtime friend and creative partner, Alan Goodman. It was literally like Fred and Alan Inc. or something. And Alan was someone he'd worked with very closely at MTV for a long time.
I'm imagining these things being new concepts.
Yeah, it's like brand new.
Branding is brand new, ironically. And it's also...
And this is just the 80s.
Yeah, it's just the 80s. And it's a concept that like 13-year-olds on TikTok now understand and feel the need to like create their brand. And
they learn it at like 12 years old and it's implicit.
Yeah, it's something that people just inherently know. And these were new ideas that he was able to, like you said, bring his knowledge to these networks, but he's also able to create a company that's based on that, which now, that's what I do too.
He just saw it. He had the foresight to see like, this is what could be. That's why I say he's so rare. Somebody who can literally imagine something that doesn't exist. That's hard to do.
It is hard to do.
Almost everything is a copy of a copy. But these people were having original thoughts.
And it's going to make a lot of sense to you, listener, when we dive into more of the Courage history, because Fred Siebert has a hand in that.
So yeah, the new president was firing a bunch of people, and I don't know if Fred and Alan were fired or if they were just recommended by this guy, but Fred and Alan took their show on the road to Nickelodeon in 1984, when Nickelodeon was the lowest rated cable network in America.
Ouch. 6
months later, Nickelodeon was first in the ratings, thanks to the efforts of these two guys.
He flipped it.
Incredible. 6 months.
Crazy.
Fred and Alan stuck with Nick for a while. They created Nick at Night.
Which I love.
They developed the concept and the branding for Nicktoons. And they did all of this until 92, when Fred took the position of president of Hanna-Barbera, which by then had already been acquired by Turner Broadcasting. So no doubt they wanted Fred's expertise in branding this new network that would be all about cartoons. Mm-hmm. The third thing about Fred, he supplied Cartoon Network with all of its greatest original shows, short of Space Ghost Coast to Coast and Ed, Edd n Eddy. So Fred once again struck gold when he created What a Cartoon, which was a cartoon incubator that provided an opportunity for creators from all over the world to pitch and create their own animated show concepts.
What?
What a Cartoon premiered under the name World Premiere Tunes in February 1995, but was quickly changed to The What a Cartoon Show.
The exclamation point is important.
Yeah, What a Cartoon Show. And then just later to the Cartoon Show, because cartoons are to Cartoon Network as Nicktoons are to Nickelodeon. Mm-hmm. It's just original animated content.
I remember bumpers and advertisements for cartoons.
Cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
The repetition.
The things that just stuck in my mind.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, all this very much confused me when I was researching this, because I was
because everything's a cartoon and it's all cartoon.
It's Cartoon Network, but it's cartoon, but it's What a Cartoon. And oh my God, what are cartoons? I don't even know anymore.
The word has lost all meaning.
And most of the cartoons also featured live action things.
Yeah.
So here's the thing about What a Cartoon. It was modeled after the golden age of cartoons from the mid-20th century. Not only in style and length, but also in the creative environment and atmosphere. Creative power was returned to and remained with the animators and artists and writers, giving them sole creative freedom to make their own iconic cartoon characters. It's very important to Fred Siebert and everything that he does. His first rule is creators first, every time.
Which is awesome.
Very, very cool.
And rare in an executive.
Yes. But I mean, he is one of those people that we keep talking about. He's in our roster now.
Yeah.
For people who are just incredible creators of children's entertainment.
Adding him, and we're going to add John Dilworth also.
We better. It's just like, these are also just decent people.
Exactly. That is at the heart of it. And I'm going to say that, and I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
But that's at the heart of it, is that they are just...
They're good people.
Decent people.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't take much. The bar is on the floor.
It's not hard to be a real decent person.
It isn't hard, but it's rare. And it shines in this industry when these people are amazing.
So Fred just took a look at everything that he was just put in charge of. And he was like, this is what they all did back in the 40s and the 50s. Let's just do something like that again. Mm-hmm. Like if it worked before, it can work again. And he had also just seen this type of environment work over at Nickelodeon with their original 3 Nicktoons, Doug, Ren and Stimpy, and Rugrats. Mm-hmm. So he was given the green light to move forward with this idea he had. And they received pitches from about 5,000 people all across the world, ages ranging from 20 to 70 years old. From these thousands of pitches they received, they brought in 48 original animated short films, and they would lump 3 episodes together to make a full hour of What a Cartoon content, and from there would see how well the short films tested. And from these 48, a handful were well enough received to be given fully produced runs. The hands down most popular short was Dexter's Lab. I think there were 2 Dexter's Lab shorts, and those were the most popular ones. But the other shows included Cow and Chicken, I Am Weasel, Johnny Bravo, The Powerpuff Girls, and Courage the Cowardly Dog.
What a cartoon.
What a cartoon. What a cartoon.
Thank you, Christian, for sharing with us the history of Cartoon Network.
Hey, you know what?
Very much appreciated.
Anytime you need, I got you.
Thank you. And we needed to know the background of Cartoon Network so that I could now merge timelines with you and share about the history of our friend, John R. Dilworth, creator of Courage the Cowardly Dog.
I'm pumped to hear this because I've seen his name just plastered across the screen.
Right?
Hundreds of times.
Hundreds. And since we've discussed people like DJ McHale and Craig Bartlett at length, I think it's only right that we get to know John a little bit better as well. Or Dilly, as he calls himself.
Do you think Dilly dallies?
Oh, Dilly dallies. Dilly loves to dally. So John Dilworth, who I would describe from my readings this week as unique and otherworldly himself, graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the School of Visual Arts in New York in 1985. From there, he became an art director at Baldy Bloom and Whelan Advertising, but continued to work on his own films in his spare time, providing much of his own funding. I know the feeling, John.
Yeah, like you do.
We know how you feel.
Been there, done that, pal.
Eventually, he founded his own animation studio, Stretch Films, in 1991 and incorporated in 1994. During this time, he was working on short films, and several of which aired on major networks, including MTV, and also finding success working on the openings of other animated shows. His 1995 short, The Dirty Birdie, received international recognition.
The Dirty Birdie.
And caught the attention of Hanna-Barbera's president at the time, Fred Siebert.
Oh, Fred.
And it's a good thing that Fred noticed this, because John described himself as being broke after the effort it took in his studio to hand draw this short.
Yeah.
And it was from this meeting that Courage as We Know Him was eventually born.
Huh. Wow.
I'll take a quick pause as we talk about John Dilworth because I want to make note of this. Throughout his career, he worked on different opening sequences, like I said, including Nicktoons like Doug, Rugrats, My Life as a Teenage Robot.
Really?
As well as the Disney animated series PB&J Otter.
Okay. I don't know that
and
one.
This, not Courage, is somehow where I remember seeing his name pop up all the time as a tween while my sister was watching the show.
Yeah. Wow.
I remember seeing his name across that every time.
Wild.
He also created a series of 9 animated shorts for Sesame Street based on his independent film Noodles and Ned. One notable thing about John Dilworth that was said both about him and directly by him is that he had a penchant for giving back and was always eager to fund and mentor, and is always eager to fund and mentor other artists, painters, and dreamers, as he called them. Whenever he speaks, you can tell this about him. He seems to be a truly curious and compassionate person, and he's attempting to not only build a legacy, but to push the very edges of his own imagination at every opportunity.
Nice.
He says that he wants to give opportunities to other dreamers because when he was a puppy, his words, he knew how difficult it was to find support like that.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
In 2019, John did an interview with a student journalist at Fort Hays State University. And in early 2022, he did an interview with someone who calls themselves the cartoon scientist.
Okay.
So I'm going to provide quotes and pull from some of those interviews to give you perspective from John himself.
Sweet. As
well as a couple of other blog and magazine articles from some of the creators, head writer, etc.
Cool.
But maybe we can talk to John one day because he's a character.
That'd be sweet.
He's a character. If we rewind the Courage tape all the way back to the beginning, sources agree that the series owes its life to the 7-minute short, The Chicken from Outer Space, created by John Dilworth in 1996, funded by Hanna-Barbera due to that meeting that I mentioned. It became sort of a pilot to the show.
Dude, I remember watching this pilot so many times.
Yeah.
Like, I remember talking about this to people and them being like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I've never even seen that.
I remembered it very well also.
I'm like,
so they probably aired it many times.
With the chicken and the eggs.
In the university journalism interview, John was asked where the idea for Courage came from. He says that he often says that it started with a pencil, which of course it does, John. He's very literal like that. So he was visiting a farm where his girlfriend's family lived and worked, and one afternoon they were sitting on the porch having a refreshment.
A hard lemonade.
He says, and I quote, "The wheat was rippling from the hot wind. It was like being on the sea. Fireflies turned the grass festive. Admiring the monstrous clouds that dominate the sky out there, an intense ball of light suddenly appeared, and I was startled by the feeling that it was staring at us. And just as suddenly, it disappeared. I asked my hostess, what was that? And she replied, grinning, who knows?
Oh, wow.
I started writing the story of the alien chicken the next day."
That's incredible. That's incredible.
That's where it came from. The character of Courage himself grew out of an earlier character of John Dilworth called Hamilton, who appeared in his short Smart Talk with Raisin, which was a pilot actually created for MTV.
Okay.
I'll give a brief rundown if you're unfamiliar with the chickens that Christian is passionately yelling about. The plot of this short follows the same characters that we come to know through the show as Courage, Eustace, and Mariel. Courage alerts the couple to a UFO, and we see a space chicken emerge from a spaceship that lands.
Space chicken.
And in typical Courage fashion, when they follow him to investigate this UFO, it's disappeared. the chicken invades their henhouse and infects the eggs with basically chicken pox, as John Dilworth says, which Eustace then eats, and he begins to transform into chicken himself.
Yeah.
Because Meryl sees what's going on with Eustace, she avoids the eggs, and at this point, Courage is ambushing the chicken with a slingshot. Then Courage and the space chicken engage in several games, like rock, paper, scissors, to negotiate for Muriel's safety.
They're playing checkers, they're arm wrestling.
Meanwhile, Eustace has fully transformed and is advancing menacingly on Muriel. After claiming victory in these Olympic Games, Courage orders the space chicken to leave Earth, but instead he attempts to assassinate Courage, who dodges the ray gun, which leads to it bouncing back onto the chicken,
Trying to do a nice roast chicken.
seemingly destroying him.
He looked delicious.
Courage then shoots the alien Eustace with the same gun, causing him to disintegrate into a pile of ash. Then Courage and Muriel saved the day, everything's good again. They're relaxing in their rocking chair, and a mouse comes out of the wall and decides to eat a pile of ash on the floor. And then his eyes change color.
Into the classic alien chicken red eyes.
And this makes Courage scream. Classic Courage scream.
Classic Courage.
And then he turns to the camera in quotes.
This shouldn't happen to a dog. Ouch!
This shouldn't happen to a dog. And that's the whole short.
Wasn't that a common thing? I don't remember. I'm going to remember a lot more as we watch it, because I haven't just rewatched Courage. But is it a common thing that Eustace kind of is forgotten, like left to the devices, and it always resets?
I think so, because Courage doesn't really mind when that happens, and we'll get to why.
Because he just wants to save Muriel.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was really funny. I remembered so much watching this, because even when he's pulling the whole like Lassie dog, come see what I see, he's like changing shape, transforming to show them like, oh, I'm a UFO, I'm a robot alien thing. Like he's literally like shape shifting,
right,
to convey, because he doesn't speak to them.
Right.
But I was just remembering so many classic Courage things.
Tropes from Courage, really.
Ooga booga booga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so crazy that they had so much. John Dilworth, had so much of it like fleshed out just from the short.
Already in this pilot, yeah.
So the short aired as part of Cartoon Network's What a Cartoon!
What a Cartoon!
Like Christian said, which was obviously an innovation by the same president who had believed in Dilworth and given him the funding, Fred Siebert. And like you said, the short had no dialogue except for Courage's ending line, which was spoken by voice actor Howard Hoffman, who provided all of the other vocal sounds and effects for that short.
Yeah.
And we do see the alien chicken come back later in the series.
Son of the chicken from outer space or whatever.
We'll watch out for him. The Chicken from Outer Space was actually nominated for the Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film at the 68th Academy Awards, which was 5 days prior to the Cartoon Network premiere.
Really?
But it lost to the Wallace and Gromit short, A Close Shave.
It's hard to beat Wallace and Gromit, though, let's be honest.
Is it? I would much prefer Courage.
Well, me too, but at the time, Wallace and Gromit was huge.
They were big. You're right.
They were winning. It was a popularity contest. All that stuff is rigged anyway.
Of course, yeah.
Nothing is sacred.
Dilworth was okay with the loss because Cartoon Network, namely an executive, Linda Saminsky, loved the short so much that they commissioned Dilworth to turn it into a series. But not before John Dilworth did some pitching.
Yeah.
In the interview with the university, John claims that he, quotes, went to Hollywood and pitched the storyboard wearing full spaceman gear. I found this awesome silver one piece, jazzed it up with alien decals, spray-painted boots silver, and found a helmet, and I rigged a propeller on top. I was also juggling. The room was full of executives. They all loved it.
So Dilly was doing a little bit of dallying.
Dilly was dallying.
I see where he's
this
doing
was one of the
his dilly-dallying.
first dilly-dallying.
Wow. Good for him.
The first, what's the word? This was one of Dilly's first forays into dallying. And I read conflicting things, but it seems like he was actually pitching a feature film at the time. Some sources also claim that he didn't take the spacesuit off for a full week.
What?
So this is the kind of mind that we're working with in John Dilworth. He also concedes that the Oscar nomination probably helped him secure the deal for a series, and it wasn't entirely due to his spacesuit.
Yeah, I could see that would help you a little bit.
Dilworth also says that the reason it took a few years between developing Courage after the success of Chicken from Outer Space was because he didn't want to shutter his studio and move to Hanna-Barbera's.
Right.
So, of course, he and John Siebert and Ted Turner, I assume other executives at Cartoon Network eventually worked it out.
That's really interesting. I wonder if the reason why he didn't want to move his animation studio to Hanna-Barbera's is because he was probably working with people he trusted and cared about and was like, well, if I move there, they don't have jobs. Do you think that may have been kind of...
I don't know it was that so much that they didn't have jobs, but it was, I can't uproot all these people, and I do believe in these people, and I want to work with these people.
Okay.
I think it was a lot of that.
Because he would have moved across the country, presumably, to go work in probably Los Angeles.
Yeah, but he would have had to.
Yeah. Wow, and that's wild.
I think he just kind of dug his heels in and said, I'm going to stay in New York. And that's where he was, kind of from. That's where he
to be like,
went to school.
You want this, but I'm going to risk throwing all this away by not moving and doing what you want me to do. Mm-hmm. That's pretty ballsy.
Yeah. But he had something that they wanted. At the end of the day, that's really what worked in his favor.
He knew what he had. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's a skill set all in its own, is kind of knowing what you have.
Yeah.
He knew that it had legs. He knew where he could go with it, and he knew where he wanted to go with it. And he also knew that it really aligned with what they were trying to build at Cartoon Network.
Yeah. And he was right.
He was right.
That's pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy. Not pretty dark. Not yet.
We're almost there. So next time, this is a two-parter. Mm-hmm. And then next time, you're going to get way deeper into the production of the show.
I want to really dive into Courage, the production, the people behind it, the minds behind it. We've learned a little bit about Siebert and Dilworth, but I want to dive into some of the sound designers, the writers, and the pretty dark themes and material.
I'm excited about that because I always am interested in how do you go from I have this one idea, I have this one thing, to have an entire series of a show that's fully fleshed out with all these different people working on it. And I always kind of get to that intimidated point where I'm like, I'd love to pursue something, but what if they look at you and go, okay, so like, what other ideas do you have? Mm-hmm. And I know that some people like live off of that kind of like
I feel like
thrill.
Dilworth is the kind of person that kind of thrives in that environment.
I don't necessarily.
Of course, he appreciates collaborating and ideas and everything, but I think he just is I'll say it, I'll discuss it some in part two.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about it.
He's a fountain of just weird stuff.
That's cool. I'm so excited.
And I don't know what that's like. It's like David Bowie, these creatives that have this other sense. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating to me.
Otherworldly. I mean, you said that earlier, and that was used to refer to David Bowie too. Mm-hmm. And I cannot wait for part two. I'm super pumped about that.
We hope you want part two as well, listener.
God,
hang on tight.
They will.
It's coming.
They're ready. But to cap off this episode, I just had some fun facts about Fred Siebert and the What a Cartoon whole sort of concept.
Yeah, let's hit those.
So the coolest thing about Fred that I found. College dropout.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He said he spent more time at the school's radio station headquarters than he did going to class.
Nice. He knew where he was going.
He knew what he wanted to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I love that.
You know what? College isn't for everybody, and you don't have to go, and you don't have to finish.
Definitely not.
And technically, Ted Turner didn't graduate either. But one, he never needed to. Sure. And two, it's because he was kicked out of school, not because he just didn't want to finish.
I guess that is a different beast.
He was going to graduate, but then he got kicked out. Presumably because there was a female in his dorm.
Whoa.
And they said, "You're out of here, Ted."
What year would that have been?
Oh, well, he would have been, maybe 21. So, because let me go back. He took over the family business at 24 years old. It was 63. So we can assume it was maybe 1960.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just because he's a ladies' man.
Yeah, he was just too smooth. I mean, he got Jane Fonda, so
right.
He had to have had something.
He had the Riz
going for him,
as the kids are saying now.
The Riz.
Have you heard that?
No, my God, I don't know half of what they say these days.
I know I'm speaking to the millennials here, but TikTok keeps me somewhat informed, and they call it Riz, like when you can pull the preferred gender.
You can get laid.
You can get laid. They call that Riz, and it comes from charisma.
I see.
Riz.
Charisma. I see. Mm-hmm. Wow. I learn something new every day. I also just learned that the fan in my attic is temperature controlled. I can set the temperature at which it turns on. I never knew that.
Wow.
Lived here for 7 years, and the HVAC guy was like, you can program that. And I was like, wow, no, I didn't know that. So
You're never too old to learn.
You guys, you know what? Never too old to learn. And I wanted to give some honorable mentions for the original What a Cartoon incubator.
Sure.
So one of the other shorts that was not picked up was called Larry and Steve. And this was all about a dog who gets adopted by a dimwit guy who can speak dog language. This short was created by Seth MacFarlane. And when Cartoon Network didn't pick it up, Seth developed it further into what became Family Guy. Uh-huh. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So pretty fateful that he didn't get it. So that's also...
What's the dog's name? Everybody's yelling at me.
Brian.
Yeah, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
That was Brian.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it wasn't Brian and Peter, but...
It was proto
he
Brian.
furthered it. Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to graduate college. You can have girls in your dorm, and you can also not
You might get rejected by a major network. You can be rejected
by Cartoon Network and still have a successful career.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the most successful in entertainment, honestly.
And the other that's really just important to me was Mina and the Count. Remember that? Have you ever heard about that?
Yes.
I think I've referenced it on the show.
Tell me why I know that.
Okay, so Mina and the Count was created by Rob Renzetti. And this is the only other of the shows from those original 48 that I wish had been further developed. It's about a little girl who gets mixed up with Vlad the Count, who is a vampire that is sort of forced into being her friend against his will kind of thing.
Sounds kind of like Lydia and Beetlejuice.
Yeah, except that Beetlejuice wanted to be there.
Oh, okay.
And she didn't want him.
Yeah, that's true.
But
it was the
whereas
opposite.
The girl wants Vlad, but he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
It sounds more like a Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy.
Mm-hmm.
With Death walking around. But anyway, there ended up being a few more episodes that Rob created for Fred's future cartoon incubators that I'm about to talk about, but it was never officially picked up. But Rob Renzetti went on to direct episodes of Dexter's Lab,
nice,
Powerpuff Girls, Samurai Jack. Oh my God, I love Samurai Jack. And he eventually created My Life as a Teenage Robot.
Crazy. There's so much overlap.
There really is.
Everywhere.
We'll talk about Rob Renzetti in the future so much more, without a doubt. We'll get into all of him, all of his history and everything.
We'll get all into him.
We'll get all up inside of his guts. And then...
You took it one step too far.
Oh, God. Every time. So the other future incubators that Fred created, his most recent version of it ended in 2018. And that was the Go cartoons. But the important ones that I want to mention are the two that followed What a Cartoon. So the next one he did was Oh Yeah cartoons for Nickelodeon, which resulted in the Fairly Odd Parents,
wow,
Chalk Zone, and My Life as a Teenage Robot. Mm-hmm. And then after that, he did random cartoons for Nickelodeon again, which resulted in something called Fanboy and Chum Chum, but also two shows from Pendleton Ward, Bravest Warriors and Adventure Time.
Yeah.
Which was then picked up by Cartoon Network.
Right.
And I love Pendleton Ward as a thinker, an animator, a creator, a writer. He had a hand in doing some of the Over the Garden Wall.
It's crazy to me that, and really cool, that there was so much innovation in animation at this time in history.
Yeah.
And that they used this medium. You know, they're like, we want your ideas, we want your thoughts, we want to support new creators. It wasn't just a Dilworth thing. It was really a network thing for Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. Yeah. They gave these creators a leg up.
It gave these creators a platform to, peddle their wares or whatever the word is.
Yeah. To get out there, to get noticed. I think it's exciting to talk about this on That's Pretty Dark because it is the root of a lot of the entertainment that we grew up watching. A lot of the entertainment that seems out of the box or offbeat came from incubators like this. Yeah, yeah. And executives that were willing to give those creatives a chance.
It's almost the manifestation of the phrase, like throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks.
Pretty much.
Thousands of pitches and then dozens of actual created, produced animated shorts just to see what people enjoyed.
That's what makes these cartoons so good.
Yeah. I agree.
They were the best of the best. The cream rises to the top or whatever.
Ooh, the cream of the crop. Also, hawk their wares.
I was going to say hawk, and I was like, I said that earlier. It didn't feel right, so I didn't say it again.
Oh, undiagnosed ADHD. Loving it.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
That is the definition of ADHD right there.
I feel like I interrupted you. You had a...
No, that was funny. I enjoyed that.
One last thing about Fred is he's still producing today through his company Fred Films.
Okay.
Which he created after resigning from his previous company, Frederator Studios.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Frederator.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, he's received an AIGA medal. He's won several Emmys and Annies, and he's a member of the Animation Magazine Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Just to cap off
That's
Fred's
really
secret
cool.
there for everybody.
I was going to do basically the same thing about John Dilworth.
Oh, yeah?
He is still regularly posting to the Stretch Films YouTube channel.
Okay.
He shares animation content, interviews, all kinds of stuff. His voice when he speaks reminds me so much of Horror from The Pagemaster.
Oh, really?
He sounds so much like that character. It's crazy. But the short that I talked about, including the shorts that I talked about, including The Dirty Birdie, Chicken from Outer Space, Noodles and Ned, all of those things, can still be viewed probably on his YouTube, but definitely also on his stretchfilms.com site, which is complete with cheesy 2000 mouse-over sound effects that took me an embarrassingly long time to find the source of in all of my research tabs that were open. I was like, where is this sound come? It was from that tab.
Nice. I hate when that happens.
Oh, Buzz Holly.
When a video starts playing and it's a different tab and you're like, oh, what?
I know. But it wasn't even videos. It was like there were mouse-over sounds. So I would have like moused over something, moved to a different tab, and it was like finishing the sound that had just played. Yeah. But yeah, if you're interested in that, it's really fascinating. If you're looking for something to do until part 2 comes out, there are some really cool things that you can find there. And you might even enjoy and appreciate, part 2 that much more.
You just might.
Okay.
That's it. Okay. Done.
And scene.
And stop. Save.
Okay.
Wow, this was fun.
Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you so much.
Thanks for listening to part 1.
Remember that our Patreon exists. So
Patreon.com/TPD podcast.
Make sure to check that out.
Can't even believe it.
And we can't wait to join you again in part 2, where we really, I've told Christian before, like, I get nervous when we break these things into multiple parts, just because I worry that, some of the background information, the historical context is going to be interesting to some people, but really dry for others. But we really get into the juice of the matter in part 2 a lot of times.
It's going to be such a wet episode.
We got a wet episode coming your way with all of the darkness that you remember from Courage. I'm sorry, but we had to have our history lesson first. So we can't wait to share more about Courage the Cowardly Dog in part 2.
We can't, and I'm not sorry, so I won't apologize. Because you're listening for a reason. And we appreciate it. Thanks, guys. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Go give $5 to our Patreon.
Hey, yeah, thanks. We appreciate that too.
Ooh, $5 and 5 stars.
Ooh, I like that even better.
5 for 5 Fridays. It's Friday? Well, maybe. It might not be Friday for you. 5 for 5. 5 stars, $5.
Give us 5 stars on your favorite podcast platform. A lot of you guys are listening on Apple Podcasts, and on Apple Podcasts, you can even leave reviews. So if you like us, that'd be great.
5 stars, $5, 5 reviews.
He's stuck, guys. He's broken.
I'm stuck and I'm broken. I haven't had dinner yet, so I gotta
eat.
Woo! Feeling courageous, feeling cowardly and courageous. Let's do it.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye, y'all. Thanks for listening to That's Pretty Dark. Written and produced by Christian Baxter Mott and Kaylin Andrews.
Our music is composed by Jonathan Simmons, and our art is provided by Paige Garland at Power Girl Illustration.
Join the collective nostalgia and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at That's Pretty Dark Podcast.
Share your experiences and let us know what shows, films, or villains still haunt you from childhood at that'sprettydarkpodcast@gmail.com. Remember, you're never really alone.
So, until next time, sweet dreams, everyone.
The Cartoon Network.